Hello and welcome to TV3's Nightline. I'm Pasir Gudang. The top stories. Lawsuit to be filed against Johor government, 10 others on behalf of Pasir Gudang pollution victims. And Health Ministry to release more Wolbachia tainted mosquitoes to combat dengue. Welcome. Felda settlers' lands will be consolidated and cultivated efficiently on a large-scale basis by those experienced in the agriculture sector. Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir said the move was to ensure various crops could be planted and to generate a steady source of income for the settlers. Speaking at Felda Settlers' Day at Felda Selancar 3 in Pahang, the Prime Minister said part of the combined land could be used for mixed crops to avoid reliance on a single crop.
Jika harga hasil tumbuhan itu jatuh, maka kita akan menderita kerana tidak dapat menampung sara hidup kita. Di waktu itu kita perlu kepada subsidi. Sebaliknya, saya tak ingat kerajaan memberi subsidi kepada ladang-ladang yang besar-besar yang di waktu harga jatuh pun mereka tidak rugi dengan banyak.
However, Tun Dr. Mahathir admitted efforts to convince Felda settlers to go down this road might be difficult in the beginning, especially with the first-generation settlers who were used to the old ways. Today, farming vegetables and fruits give better returns than palm oil or rubber, but the settlers are still sticking to old crops. During the event, the Prime Minister also launched the Settlers Development Program to help increase Felda settlers' income. The comprehensive action plan would be based on smart farming and innovative downstream activities. In his speech, Tun Dr. Mahathir also said the management of Felda should be reshuffled so that the agency is administered by professionals as practiced by large-scale plantation management to enable Felda to reap higher profits. Tun Dr. Mahathir said Felda, which had opened more than 404,685 hectares of land, is among the largest plantations in the world, even though it is unable to give high income to settlers, as the previous management is different from large estate management. During the event, the Prime Minister also announced an allocation of 637 million ringgit to implement 3 projects in Pahang, namely the water tank for the Gebeng industrial area and Phase 3 of the Semambu water treatment plant, as well as the project to overcome clean water supply disruption in Rau. Victims of the 2 recent pollution cases in Pasir Gudang, Johor, will be filing a lawsuit against 11 defendants, including the state government and the Menteri Besar. The lawsuit will be filed on July 17th at the Johor Bahru High Court by lawyer Kamarudin Ahmad, who said he was representing the victims. Kamarudin said the lawsuit represents 160 people, including 34 students and 120 fishermen who were affected by the pollution. Majority of the victims are asking for compensation between 4,000 and 5,000 ringgit each and leaving it to the courts to decide on other compensation. The lawsuit is also seeking a 5 million ringgit compensation for general damages suffered by Irfan Wafi Idham Wazir. The 12-year-old suffered from myokemia after he was believed to have been exposed to the toxic pollution in Sungai Kim Kim in March. Meanwhile, the Health Ministry on Sunday stressed the cause of death of a woman in Johor Bahru was due to heart problems and not due to Pasir Gudang pollution. Its Minister, Datuk Sri Dr. Zulkifli Ahmad, said the woman was suffering from chronic illnesses, especially hypertension, for the past 10 years and was admitted to the Sultan Ismail Hospital in Johor Bahru on July 5th due to breathing difficulties, persistent coughing for 3 days, apart from swelling in the legs and fever. Dr. Zulkifli said that based on clinical reports, her symptoms and test results, the woman's heart functions had worsened due to her chronic illness. Authorities in Pasir Gudang are still clueless over the latest wave of chemical pollution to hit the industrial district. The government are still scrambling to trace and pinpoint the possible source of pollution affecting the area. Our reporter Wan Izul Islam travels to Johor to investigate.
This is Pasir Gudang, Johor, where there is at least 252 chemical factories in this area. Air pollution has gotten so bad in Pasir Gudang that recently over 300 students from 31 schools showed symptoms of dizziness as well as difficulty breathing, where at least 127 students were sent to nearby clinics. Now, let's go find out more about the air pollution here in Pasir Gudang, Johor. Let's go.
Authorities, still baffled with the cause of the symptoms affecting the children, have inspected at least 153 chemical factories. Investigations have found that at least 101 of those factories have committed an offence under the Environment Quality Act. After speaking to residents living in close proximity to these chemical factories, many have expressed their disappointment in how the crisis is being handled by authorities.
Bagi saya sekarang ni saya rasa macam risaulah sebab belum tahu lagi apa punca. Kita sebagai penduduk ni lagi-lagi dekat Nusa Damai, dekat dengan area sekolah. Jadi kita rasa macam tak selamat juga. Tapi tak tahu punca apa sebenarnya.
We are in dark, we don't know. Yeah, we just only have to rely on the speculation or rumors or this kind of thing. I think it's not so good, but we have no source to rely on. We have wait for announcement from governments or related agencies, but we have found nothing that we can say that we are safe or what actually happened.
With authorities still puzzled at exactly what is causing the second wave of air pollution here in Pasir Gudang, Johor, residents, especially parents of school children, are frustrated with the uncertainty of their situation. Speculations as to why only school children are being affected. One of the theories is during a warm summer's day, in the afternoon, hot air will start to rise, and children in the third and fourth level of school buildings will start developing symptoms due to little to no ventilation. Action is being taken by vacating that of the third and fourth floor of each school building in Pasir Gudang, as well as installing gas detectors as an added safety measure.
The Energy, Science, Technology, Environment and Climate Change Ministry, MESTEC, has also vowed for stern action to be taken against factories committing offences that are compromising the safety of residents.
Dan beratus-ratus pegawai kita dari JAS, dari MPPG, dari APM, beratus-ratus pegawai untuk dapatkan bacaan. Siang malam mereka pergi dapatkan bacaan ya untuk mencari punca. Dan kita ada puluhan pasukan penguatkuasaan siang malam juga pergi tengok, cek satu kilang demi satu kilang. Kalau ada kesalahan terus ambil tindakan.
We are now here in Sungai Kim Kim, Pasir Gudang, Johor, where it all first began. As you can see behind me, after years of illegal toxic chemical dumping as well as water pollution, the water has actually turned black and it smells horrible. Now the question remains, what will the current government do to help resolve the issue of air pollution as well as illegal dumping in the rivers?
The Health Ministry will be releasing Aedes mosquitoes that contain the Wolbachia bacteria in stages across the country to control the spread of dengue, which is reported to be on the rise. Health Minister Datuk Sri Dr. Zulkifli Ahmad said this followed the success of a pilot study using such Aedes mosquitoes to contain the spread of dengue at 7 localities in Selangor since March 2017.
Pelaksanaan kaedah inovasi nyamuk Aedes berwolbachia ini dipilih untuk menangani beban kes dengue yang tinggi dan juga untuk mengurangkan kebergantungan kepada kawalan nyamuk dengan menggunakan racun serangga.
Datuk Sri Dr. Zulkifli said this after releasing eggs of mosquitoes with Wolbachia around the Sri Rakyat housing scheme in Bukit Jalil on Sunday. By doing so, Malaysia will be the second country in the world after Australia to adopt this approach in addressing dengue. The Wolbachia bacteria stops the dengue virus from replicating, so the mosquito does not spread the virus when it bites. Standard & Poor's S&P Global Ratings affirmation of Malaysia's issuer credit rating with a stable outlook last week as a sign of its confidence in Malaysia's positive economic outlook. Finance Minister Lim Guan Eng said S&P's rating of A- for Malaysia also demonstrated its confidence in the country's strong institutional profile, sound economic fundamentals, and prudent debt management. In a statement on Sunday, Lim said the reaffirmation also shows that the increase in the government's direct debt does not affect Malaysia's sovereign credit ratings, especially when the government's overall debt and liabilities have been reduced. He said one of the key drivers for the rating was Malaysia's healthy growth prospect. In May 2019, exports grew 2.5% to 84.1 billion ringgit from 82.1 billion ringgit a year ago, which is above the 2.2% market consensus as compiled by Bloomberg. As a result of the continuous export growth, trade surplus for the first 5 months of 2019 rose by 4.3% to 56.8 billion ringgit, compared with 54.5 billion ringgit in the same period last year. Approved foreign direct investment (FDI) across all sectors for the first quarter of 2019 rose 73.4% to 29.3 billion ringgit versus 16.9 billion ringgit a year ago. Lim said the Pakatan Harapan administration have made great strides in combating corruption and institutional reform that is seen as a credit positive on top of the country's economic stability and strong financial institutions. Datuk Sri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi has slammed his critics who questioned his decision to resume his duty as AMNO president after a 6-month-long leave. Speaking at the Tambun AMNO Annual General Assembly, Datuk Sri Zahid stressed that he is still the rightfully elected president of the party. Datuk Sri Zahid said certain quarters have questions about him resuming his duties and that the decision needed to be discussed first by the party's Supreme Council. He, however, pointed out that there was no discussion by the Supreme Council when he decided to go on leave. As such, there's no need for the Supreme Council to discuss his decision to resume duties now. The Bagan Datuk Member of Parliament also rejected Bersatu's invitation for AMNO and PAS to join the party in efforts to unite the Malays.
Bubarkan PBB, bubarkan mana? Sepatutnya bukan bubarkan AMNO, kita besar. Besar kita, bukan besar saja.
He also stressed that AMNO will reject any leader or party which marginalize the Malays and Islam. Datuk Sri Zahid previously went on leave as AMNO president in December last year, following multiple corruption probes, and now faces a total of 87 charges. After the break, thousands displaced by flash floods in Melaka. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now this just in, a strong magnitude 7.1 earthquake has struck off Indonesia's Sulawesi island on Sunday, prompting authorities to issue a tsunami warning and sending panicked residents fleeing from their homes. According to the United States Geological Survey, USGS, the quake struck at a depth of 24 kilometers and was centered in the Molucca Sea between North Sulawesi and North Maluku. Indonesia's geophysics agency issued a tsunami warning for coastal communities nearby. So far, there were no immediate reports of damage or casualties, but according to the USGS, considerable damage was possible due to poorly built or badly designed structures. Indonesia is one of the most disaster-hit nations on Earth due to its position straddling the so-called Pacific Ring of Fire, where tectonic plates collide. Back home in Melaka, a total of 1,194 people from 280 families have had to be evacuated in the state due to flash floods as at 10 p.m. And the number is expected to increase even though there are only light showers. State Disaster Management Committee Secretariat Head Effendi Ali said this was because there were thunderstorms in Negeri Sembilan on Saturday, and the rainwater from Negeri Sembilan will flow downstream into Alugajah district and may cause more flooding there. Currently, Alugajah has been worse hit, with 9 evacuation centres having been opened and 1 evacuation centre in Melaka Tengah. Effendi said among the evacuation centres in Alugajah were the Al-Rashdin Mosque, where 406 victims are currently taking shelter, followed by the Sekolah Kebangsaan Belimbing Dalam with 319 victims. The Royal Malaysia Police is negotiating with authorities of a certain country to bring back controversial businessman Low Teck Jo, or Jolo, to Malaysia. Inspector General of Police Datuk Sri Abdul Hamid Badur said the negotiations have to be done meticulously to avoid mistakes, as well as to avoid making authorities in the country where the fugitive businessman is hiding to feel pressured by PDRM.
Perundingan sedang berjalan, ya. Perundingan sedang berjalan dan insyaAllah saya rasa pihak ataupun negara di mana pihak berkuasa negara di mana Jolo bersembunyi itu faham ya tentang keperluan pihak Malaysia untuk membawa dia balik untuk menghadapi pertuduhan.
Datuk Sri Abdul Hamid said this in a media conference in conjunction with the Federal Territories Minister's Aidilfitri celebration with PDRM at Pulapol on Sunday. Last May, he said PDRM had obtained positive leads on Jolo's whereabouts and gave the assurance of his safe return to face the law in the country. In Terengganu, a UPSR candidate from Kelantan pleaded guilty to a charge of stealing a motorcycle at the Kuala Terengganu Magistrates Court on Sunday. He admitted before Magistrate Abdul Hayy Salim to committing the offence involving a Modenas Chris belonging to a 54-year-old man on June 26. The 12-year-old accused, who was granted 1,000 ringgit bail with 1 surety, faces a jail term of not less than a year and not more than 7 years, and a fine. The court set July 24th for remention. Meanwhile, 3 friends, 2 men and a woman in their 20s, were nabbed by police after going on a robbery spree involving 24-hour convenience stores and grocery shops in Terengganu and Kuala Lumpur. The arrest came after the suspects, who tested positive for drugs, robbed 2 outlets at knife point in Kuala Terengganu and then held up 4 more shops in Gombak before hiding out at the hotel on Friday. Authorities said the suspects were picked up at a hotel in Selayang at 11 a.m. on Saturday after police tracked down a Pro 2 Axia that was rented by the suspects via GPS. Elsewhere in Perlis, police have crippled an international syndicate smuggling and distributing various types of imitation firearms following a raid at a house in Padang Besar last week. Authorities on Sunday said they seized about 230 fake guns and rifles worth 70,000 ringgit and arrested an unemployed man believed to be the syndicate's agent in the 8:15 p.m. operation in Felkra, Lubuk Sireh on July 3rd. It was believed that the 29-year-old suspect used his house to store the illicit weapons, which were sold online for between 100 and 2,000 ringgit and sent to their customers via courier service. Coming up, scores killed in Taliban attack. Do stay with us. We're back with the foreign news. A Taliban car bomb attack on a government security compound in central Afghanistan on Sunday killed at least 8 security personnel, 6 civilians, and wounded more than 180 others. The suicide attack in Ghazni province came as an all-Afghan peace conference, which includes the Taliban, began in Qatar in an effort to end years of violence and build trust between Afghan civilians and the armed group. Afghan officials said the bomb targeted the country's main intelligence unit, National Directorate of Security. Health officials in Ghazni said 13 adults, including 8 NDS members, as well as a child, were killed in the attack, and at least 60 children who were attending classes in a private school situated near the blast site were among the 180 people wounded. The Taliban has since claimed responsibility for the attack. Iran has announced it will break a limit set on uranium enrichment in breach of the landmark 2015 deal designed to curb its nuclear ambitions. The move on Sunday was part of an Iranian effort to press Europe to salvage the accord after the United States pulled out last year and reimpose punishing sanctions on Tehran, including on its oil and banking sectors. According to officials, technical preparations for the new level of enrichment would be completed within a few hours, and Tehran would keep reducing its commitments every 60 days unless signatories of the pact protect the country from sanctions imposed by President Donald Trump. The landmark accord negotiated in 2015 had offered Iran relief from global sanctions in exchange for curbs on its nuclear program. Under the pact, Iran agreed to enrich uranium to no more than 3.67%, which is enough for power generation, but far below weapons-grade levels of 90%. Thank you very much for your time. Hope you have a good week ahead.